A heads up. This conversation is going to contain language that some of the listeners might find offensive. So please be advised.
This is A Word, a podcast from Slate. I'm your host, Jason Johnson. The number one song in America is Not Like Us, arguably the sharpest of the diss tracks swapped between rappers Drake and Kendrick Lamar in recent weeks. The beef has fueled viral videos, millions of streams, and countless hours of debate. But what does this say, good or bad, about the future of hip-hop and music? We don't know.
Drake being in a beef like this is him not understanding culturally. I shouldn't be talking to this person in this way.
The aftermath of the Kendrick versus Drake beef coming up on A Word with me, Jason Johnson. Stay with us.
We all have that friend who wakes up early to go get everyone McDonald's breakfast, while the rest of us sleep in. This is your sign to thank them. And if you're that friend, this is us saying thank you.
Just a friendly reminder that right now, get any size iced coffee before 11 a.m. for just 99 cents. And a satisfying sausage McMuffin with egg is just $2.79. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome to A Word, a podcast about race and politics and everything else. I'm your host, Jason Johnson. Spring of 2024 might go down in history as a high point in hip-hop, a moment when dueling diss tracks from Kendrick Lamar and Drake sparked millions of streams, a universe of spinoffs, and arguably the first song of this summer, Not Like Us.
They tell me Chubb's the only one that get your hand-me-downs and party at the party playing with his nose now. And Baca got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boys, certified pedophiles. Wop, 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 that fuck 'em up. Wop, 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 I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bitch, ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. They not like us, they not like us, they not like us.
The track has more than 100 million streams, the fastest a rap song has ever reached that mark, and topped the Billboard Hot 100 just 1 week after its release. It spawned thousands of TikTok dances, a whole subgenre of reaction videos, and performances in clubs all over the world. And like much of Drake's music, it's a crossover hit, provoking discussions and debates even in the widest of spaces, and getting play everywhere from the NBA playoffs to the Biden campaign. But Not Like Us was just one of about half a dozen diss tracks that Drake and Kendrick traded like punches throughout the spring. Kendrick hit first in March with a verse on Like That, a song from artists Future and Metro Boomin. Then in April, Drake landed the tracks Push-Ups and the AI-assisted tailor-made freestyle. But things got personal and heated after Kendrick dropped Euphoria and 616 in LA. Drake countered with Family Matters, answered within minutes by Kendrick's Meet the Grams. Even the blockbuster Not Like Us wasn't the last shot in the battle, with Drake responding with The Heart Part 6 on May 5th. The artists have been quiet since then, but the debate has been raging, with hip-hop fans arguing about the quality of the music and whether it all went too far. But this battle has also got a lot of non-rap fans listening. So, of all the rap beefs, why is this the one that's broken through? And what does that say about the music business and the culture of hip hop in 2024? With us now to discuss all of this is Touré. He's a prolific writer and commentator on race and culture. He's written several books, including the outstanding Nothing Compares to the Number 2 You, an oral history of Prince. And he's also the host of the Touré Show podcast. Touré, welcome to A Word.
Thanks for having me.
So look, we've been talking about this. We've been texting about this for weeks. Just to start off, what are your top line thoughts? The things that just jump out to you first about this rap beef between Kendrick and Drake?
So wait, let's start with this, because there was an important postscript to the whole thing where a friend of Kendrick's went on Discord and did like an hour and a half interview about this. And one of the key takeaways was that Kendrick wanted this, and he has wanted this for many years, perhaps 12 years, which he makes a reference to 12 years ago in one of the records, that he came into the industry and kind of got in Drake's orbit and realized this guy is disgusting and gross. Maybe it was his pop approach to things or some things that disgusted him about the way Drake lives his life. And it made Kendrick angry with him. And I think in 616 in LA, you see him discussing, like, I have everything I need in life. I am at peace, but God, I need to do this religious, righteous, holy war almost to cleanse the world of this horrible person. And before the Discord interview, I thought, oh, Drake wanted it with Kendrick and he bit off more than he could chew. No, Kendrick wanted this. He was looking for an opportunity and he finally got his chance. Went in the studio and did 10 songs in one session, which is superhuman. I did a whole book, as you said, about Prince. We never talked about Prince doing 10 songs in a session. We talked about him doing 3 songs in a 24-hour session, which was considered incredible. But Kendrick supposedly did 10 records. So even the notion of a back and forth is not really what's happening. He was angry. He did 10 records. We've heard 4 of them, and he released them strategically, but he was not listening to Drake. And then now he is updating the records as he went along, which is why on Not Like Us, he says the family matter, and he responds to what Drake was talking about as far as slavery in Family Matters, which came out the day before. So we were like, did he have a leak from what Drake? No. He did not have a leak. He had already recorded most of the song, and then he like sprinkled in a couple new things, which is not a hard thing. He released it 24 hours later or whatever. But this was Kendrick saying, I must attack this horrible person. And I think you feel that energy in what he's doing. And Drake seems to be like a boxer who's like, why is this guy attacking me? Like, can you all right, I'll give you a little slip back, but I don't really want this. And Kendrick's like, I want this.
This starts us in a good place of motivation. I was listening to Bomani Jones interview Roy Wood 2 weeks ago before this went to where it went to, where it was like, yeah, usually rap beefs are David versus Goliath. It's 50 and How to Rob going after all these people who were much higher than them. It's Cameron going after LL Cool J. And in most cases, rap beef in hip hop's past was a newcomer coming in and saying, I'm as bad as the established guys, and I'm going to pick this fight, hold my own. That's like me jumping in, right? How is this different? Because you're saying Kendrick hated this guy for a decade.
I think there's different sorts of beef. This one brother on TikTok was pointing out, now that we know that he feels this way, if you look at this song, I don't remember the name of the song right now, but I think it was To Pimp a Butterfly. If you look at this song through the lens of the beef, he's saying the same things without saying a name. So he's been saying these sorts of things about Drake for a long time. He just was keeping it low key about who he was talking about. I would assume that Drake knew, but I think one of the more interesting things about all this was the discussion of race or cultural competency. And Kendrick is repeatedly coming back to this notion of, you're not really Black. And a lot of people got triggered by that. It's interesting because all this has had like multiple waves of conversations, which we can go through. But like the first explosion of Kendrick saying, we don't want to hear you say the N-word anymore. People were like, oh, he's attacking him because he's biracial. That's wrong. And the second wave of that was like, no. He's not talking about being biracial. He's talking about you lack cultural competency, your understanding of Black culture, your harmony with Black culture is low because you come from outside of Black culture. You come from a middle class, largely Jewish, which Drake said in an old interview, neighborhood in Canada. You spent much more time with your white mother and her community than with your Black father. And I think we all sort of saw this sort of thing, like when we went to college and we coalesced with like lots of different Black people, and some of them come from deeply engrossed and enmeshed in Black culture, and some of them had a, let's say, wispier relationship to Black culture. And we would notice, and we might crudely say things like white boy or Oreo. Kendrick was saying something much more sophisticated. And the whole notion of Drake being in a beef like this with Kendrick is him not understanding culturally. I shouldn't be talking to this person in this way. I shouldn't be using AI Tupac in this way. I shouldn't say, he's rapping like he's trying to get the slaves freed. Like, what's wrong with that? How's that a diss? Like, we should be doing that.
So if we're looking at this sort of strategically, there's a strategy to battle rap. The players have a goal, whether it's to promote themselves, whether it's to take down the other side, whether it's to show that they're tough, whether it's revenge.
The number one strategy is to incept the audience to think about the other person differently. They are not who they said they were. I'm going to tell you who they really are. You think NWA is bad? They're getting killed on their deal by a white man. You think Nas is all that? Actually, he only had one hot album out of his first 4 albums. So that's a one hot album every 10-year average. Now you think about him differently, right? And Kendrick was working on Drake in that way. You're not really black, or you're not really down. You're not like us. You like young girls, whatever that leads to. Your crew doesn't really like you. You're not close to your kid. You're not a good parent. I do want to note that I love the idea, and we don't know how close Drake is to Adonis. I don't know that he lives in the same country as the child, but I have no idea but the notion that we are demonizing being a deadbeat father, and like that is like enough to bring up in a rap beef. Like, you're a bad dad. As like a committed father who is the son of a committed father, I'm like, yes, call them out. One of the great things in a diss song is when the first line punches you in the face, right? And like, Tupac, first off, fuck your bitch and the clique you claim. Like, that is what. But this guy said, "Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father."
Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. Let me be honest. It takes a man to be a man. Your dad is not responsive. I look at him and wish your grandpa would a world condom. I'm sorry that you gotta grow up and then stand behind him. Life is hard, I know. The challenges always go beat us home. Sometimes our parents make mistakes.
I had to pause and stop, like, oh my God, that is amazing. And just going through, like, now I'm talking to your parents. You screwed up. Now I'm talking to your daughter. Now I'm talking to you. And then, not like us, that first line, it's really the second line, but the first line he quotes, "Mustard on the beat, ho. Debo, any rap nigga, he a free throw." And the way it's not a great line. It's a fine line, right? I'm gonna beat you up and it's easy, right? You're a free throw. But it's a double entendre, which I didn't realize until last night, because DeMar DeRozan's nickname is Debo. He played for the Toronto Raptors, Drake's team, but he's from Compton. So he's not just calling out Debo from Friday. He's calling it DeMar DeRozan left the Raptors. Thank God. My man should not be on your team. That's disgusting. So he came, right? So I'm going to make free throws just like DeMar DeRozan. So there's a lot going on in the line. The way that he's saying it, the staccato way he's saying it, gets into the beat in a way that I'm like, yo, I can't not dance to this. I can't not crinkle my face to this. Like, this is incredible. The thing that I love most about hip hop is the way the MC interacts with the track and creates a rhythm with their voice. First or second time I'm listening, I may not understand what you're saying, but if you are riding the beat in an interesting way, I'm like, yo, I can listen to this 100 more times to figure out what you're saying. And Kendrick's notion of flow is incredible. And he finds the perfect way to get into that song and then into the next lines. Drake flows like he's a slam poet. I am never moved by the way he flows through a track. This is why I'm like pulling my hair when they talk about Drake as some great MC, because the ability to flow, the ability to rhyme multisyllabic words, the ability to really be complex with it, he doesn't do that. He doesn't have that. And just because you like it doesn't mean it's great.
The way I view these rap beefs is, you started with the lighter stuff. I mean, Rick Ross goes at somebody and Drake's going at people, this, that, and forth. But then over the course of that weekend, you had Euphoria, you had 616 in LA, and it got almost research oriented. It got to a point where people were investigating this. People of all ages were deeply probing and investigating this work. Is there a precedent for that? I mean, has there ever been a time where you had people who weren't music scholars, weren't music journalists, who are digging through these lines and looking for double meanings and non-character? I don't think I've ever seen that before, Touré. That's part of what's fascinating about this for me.
Well, that's Kendrick, right? To fully understand what he is doing in a song, I think about it as like, I got to go to the internet boys, right? There's always like a couple of people who will I will do the digging for everybody and unpack all these things. The first time I heard 616, I'm like, this is hot, but I have no idea what he's talking about. And if he was rapping in Greek, it would sound the same to me. But then over time, you're like, oh, wow, that has multiple meanings. That has multiple meanings. Drake does not do that. So that was not endemic to this beef. This is endemic to Kendrick's music being exposed to a wider group of people, right? Who are like, we need to rapidly understand what this person is saying. How do we unpack this, right? And instead of taking weeks. But it's interesting because TikTok, I love partly because it allows you to see the development of culture in real time. The weekend from Friday morning, 6/16, to 2 more Friday night, 1 more Saturday night, 1 more Sunday, was one of the most extraordinary and exciting periods in hip hop history, right? And like talking through all these records and like, I get a flood of texts on Friday around 11 o'clock, Drake dropped. And then 47 minutes later, here comes all the people, Kendrick dropped. Like, no, he dropped this morning. No, he just dropped again. Oh my God. Like I'm looking on TikTok for responses and everybody is either Black or they are deeply in hip hop culture. On Monday, you start to see some white people come into the conversation. And like by Tuesday, you have like middle-aged white women who are like talking about the songs or like playing with them on TikTok or whatever. So you see it sort of starts to become this wider cultural thing. If I look at this as a novel or a film and I say, what is the key line? It's when Kendrick says, I'm what the culture's feeling. Like I am in harmony with what the culture, I am speaking for the culture when I'm saying, stop saying the N-word, right? We don't like the way you move. We don't like the way you act in our culture. Drake could not say that line. It would not make sense. And he showed repeatedly like moves that are outside of harmony with the culture. Now, this is not to say that Drake does not have a valuable place in this culture. As far as a hit maker, as far as making bops that will, go in the car, in the club, whatever, like, I like One Dance. I like In My Feelings. I like Nice for What. I have these songs on my workout playlist. So if you say you like Drake, that's fine. But to me, as somebody who goes back to the beginning of hip hop, like I remember the day I heard Rapper's Delight on the radio for the first time and was like, what the hell is that? That is amazing. That was different. That was really special. I appreciate, and a lot of us who've been around for a minute in this appreciate lyrics and depth and complexity and seriousness of craft. And Drake does not do that. Now, if you're like, I just enjoy chocolate cake, that's fine. But when you're like, chocolate cake is the best food in the world, it's like, wait a minute now, fried chicken exists and really good fried chicken exists, and like, you cannot tell. I mean, and Kendrick is deeper than fried chicken, although in Black culture, nothing is really deeper than fried chicken. But I mean, like, when you say, I like Drake, I'm like, cool. And it's been bubbling in me for years. Kevin Durant and others have said Drake is one of the greatest rappers. And I'm like, then I want to pull my hair out. Now I'm like, Kendrick, go to war and show them this is not one of the great rappers. You enjoy him, fine, but don't tell me he's one of the great rappers.
We're going to take a short break. And we come back, more on Kendrick versus Drake and the history of rap beef. This is A Word with Jason Johnson. Stay tuned. You're listening to A Word with Jason Johnson. Today, we're talking about Kendrick, Drake, and the history of rap beef with cultural commentator Touré. I thought it was very interesting that you pointed out, because I follow your Instagram, and the idea that the conversation did move from pure hip hop people, then it moved to sort of white men outsiders. Talk a little bit about how this moment also led to some cultural gatekeeping. Like, there was a point at which people who are heavily involved in the culture, like, hey, you don't have an opinion in this, and or you can have an opinion because everybody can get a Twitter account, but your opinion can't be amplified because you're not enough of the culture. Talk a little bit about that.
This is part of my personal problem with the Drake conversation in hip hop, which has been going on for a while. So a lot of people will argue that Drake is either a great rapper or one of the greatest rappers of today. And when you press them on why, they always revert to sales. They could never revert to any aesthetic argument, as if Drake's sales proves his greatness. Now, I would never point to Billboard as, or Platinum Records. But in the case of Drake, it is particularly problematic because you can't get to 8, 9, 10 million sold, right? 10 billion streams without having a significant number of white fans. If your audience is overwhelmingly Black, you're not going to go to superstar numbers. You need to pull in the others to get to those sort of numbers. So if you're using sales to say that Drake is one of the greats, then you're allowing white people who are not hip hop fans, who are pop music fans, but like Drake, for them to have a vote. Want to gatekeep? Let's gatekeep. There's no imaginable way that Chad, who likes Britney Spears and Drake and Dua Lipa, gets to vote on who is a great rapper. I did an interesting test on this when we were taking my oldest child to a visit at Yale. And my wife was not up on the whole battle. This is when it was just starting. And we played for her Euphoria and push-ups. And it took like 20 minutes to explain everything that was going on in Euphoria. And my daughter and I don't know everything that's going on in Euphoria, like all the things we have figured out, where this means this and this relates to that. And then you play the Drake song and everything is immediately apparent. It's all right there on the surface. And I think that the deeper complexity of Kendrick's music is proof that it is better than more simplistic music, right? I think there is a point of diminishing returns, but in general, the more complex art is better. It's more accomplished. It shows a deeper relationship to the art form, be it visual art, sonic art, like whatever. But Drake is doing something that is simplistic, which is fun at times. Kendrick is doing something more complex.
In the interest of editorial fairness, I want to play the only part of this rap beef that Drake created that's actually charting. We're going to play a little bit of Family Matters, and we're going to talk about it on the other side.
Good kid, Mad City van, Will Potter legend, make the door slide. Tears running down my cheek, laughing at you, pussy dying, it's a war cry. Weekend music getting played in all the spots where boys got a little more pride. That's why all your friends dip into Atlanta paying just to find a tour guide. Able run your fucking bread, need to buy some more chains for some more guys.
Everybody has a motivation to beef, and Kendrick's is like, I want to change how people see you. How does it change how Drake sees himself? That in a rap battle, right, that he's only charting at 7 when this man is used to dropping number ones. Put yourself in the Drake camp right now. Put yourself in OVO, right? Put yourself in his camp right now. How does he feel? How do you think this is read within sort of his universe?
I don't know if you had told me at the start of this, Kendrick will outchart Drake by a lot with multiple catchy records and catchy moments, right? Questlove came onto my Instagram and talked about Drake is better at creating memes and creating little moments in songs that you repeat. And Kendrick destroyed him at that game. There's like 6 or 7 or 8 little things that were, I hate the way that you talk, A minor, So many little things that Kendrick created. We don't want to hear you say the N-word no more. Like all these little things that we're repeating and we're all like walking around saying. Drake created zero, right? There's no little phrase that anybody is walking around saying. And on top of it, the icing on the cake is BBL Drizzy. Now we're walking around saying that.
We're going to get to that. I want to stick with this idea of sort of memes versus phrases, because memes are ephemeral. What the meme means 6-7 years from now, hell, 6-7 months may change. But if you create a phrase, not just what you said did that 4 or 5 times, even phrases like "you're not a colleague, you're a colonizer." These are these are terms that politicians will be using in 5 or 6 years. Talk a little bit about what that means as an artist. I don't care if you're a rapper. I don't care if you're a musician. If you create that many cultural phrases that are going to last, what does that say about your overall legacy?
That speaks to your harmony with the culture, that I know how to say things that you will want to repeat. And that can only happen if I know you, and I know how you feel and how you think. But he's also really brilliant that a lot of the things that are the most catchy moments of these songs are the most devastating. I mean, like, we're all walking around singing probably A minor. The wop, wop, wop thing I love because it's not complex Kendrick, but it's onomatopoeia Kendrick. And it is him verbally punching him, right? He says, wop, 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 dot, fuck him up. So I am beating you up with these words. It's similar to in Like That, which I saw somebody we both know who shouldn't be talking about hip hop saying that Like That did not have anything that needed to be responded to. He said he called you a bum twice with like venom, which we now know he's leading toward you are a horrible person. Because right before he says, I hate the way that you walk, he's like, this is not about who's the greatest. This is about love and hate. Rap beefs at least used to be like, I am a better rapper than you, and I'm going to show it. And a lot of people have pointed out that since the Pusha T Drake beef, it has become TMZ in beefs. Who can say the gossipy thing that incepts the audience, right? And we see Drake differently after the Pusha T beef. You were hiding a child. Now suddenly Adonis is part of his public persona. So he changed. I mean, Drake played it off in terms of like embracing the child publicly. So now it's like, look at Drake and his cute kid. But, Pusha T pushed the kid out into the spotlight, and that changed the way we see Drake. That's where we are now as far as like beefs are TMZ-ish. So where can you come out with information? So when Kendrick is like, you're a pedophile, you're hiding a daughter, I'm dropping information about you that the audience is like, what? And the audience is not dealing with who's the better rapper. I mean, like, it's not even close. Kendrick is by far the better rapper on every metric of rap, of MCing.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more about the history and future of rap beef with Touré. This is A Word with Jason Johnson. Stay tuned. You're listening to A Word with Jason Johnson. Today, we're talking with cultural commentator Touré about the rap beef in the past few weeks between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. So there's this interesting element to all of this, and it's been somewhat discussed, and I was really looking forward to having this part of the conversation with you. So you're right. We have reached this TMZ point. It's who's got the better line, but we're in an age where both Drake and Kendrick accuse each other of crimes. Kendrick Lamar said, you have inappropriate relationships with underage women. That is illegal. That's not you're a drunk. That's not you're a bad father. Those things are not illegal. He accused him of having inappropriate relationships with young women. And Drake turns around and in Family Matters says, hey, Kendrick, you are physically abusive to your fiance. That is a major charge. And we're at a point, Touré, and I need the audience to understand this too. There is an ongoing court case in Georgia right now where judges are determining if rap lyrics can be used as evidence in criminal trials. What does it mean that we've had a hip hop beef that's breaking the charge where these men have accused each other of crimes and no one has investigated the authenticity of the crimes?
Well, that's an interesting question and a more legal question. I would take it in a slightly different direction in that, and a woman was on my podcast and pointed this out. When you're talking about being a deadbeat dad, which is not illegal, but it's still a horrible thing. You talk about liking underage girls, and you talk about, domestic violence. Not you and I, but a lot of fans are like, okay, what else you got? I'm not going to not listen to the guy because he hit his wife. I'm not going to not listen to the guy because he kissed a 17-year-old. Or he pursued some hot 18-year-old, but he had a date with her on her 18th birthday that clearly wasn't their first fucking date. Like, what is that? But, a lot of people are not taking care of their kids. A lot of the culture is like, wow, that's a horrible thing to say. Like, what else you got? Drake will continue to have a career. Kendrick won, so, that's not a problem. But, are Kendrick fans going, ooh, you hit your wife? Not really. The other thing, which turns from your point, before this battle, I thought Kendrick has, I think it's 5 stellar albums. The man never disappoints. He is one of the most extraordinary, intricate, meticulous, brilliant MCs we've ever seen. Can I not say he's top 5 all time? Before this beef, most people who care about hip hop would have given me an argument about, I'm not ready to. After this, I think it's crazy to not say he's top 5.
So it's interesting that you say that. What's your take on some of the critiques of this battle? Questlove was like, I don't really know if I like this. I don't know if I thought this was well done. I sat with Ta-Nehisi Coates and I said, hey, what are your thoughts? Ta-Nehisi's like, I'm about to turn 49 years old. I love Kendrick, but I don't turn to him for that. What do you say to the people who are real hip hop fans who have heard this beef and they're repulsed by it or they're disappointed by it? Do you think that reflects that they have a sort of fantasy view of what hip hop used to be? What's your take on the people who are critiquing it?
I loved this. This was an extraordinary moment for hip hop. I love Quest. He's a genius. He's wrong. It's not that no one won. Hip hop is not dead. This was an extraordinary moment in hip hop in that we got a lot of incredible music, most of it out of Kendrick. Somebody stepped up and said, that man is a fraud on many levels, and I'm going to call him out systematically and make incredible records about it. This is an historic moment in hip hop, and it's definitely the greatest battle in hip hop history. And I'm not like, oh, I look down on a battle. Well, who cares? It's grown men writing poems about each other. Like, go sit down. Shut up. These are great records for the most part. And this is a fantastic battle back and forth between these two guys who are two of the biggest names in the game.
I know that in the past, sometimes diss tracks, they came months apart because people had to drop albums. They had to get information ready. They had to get it distributed. Had to either get a radio station, whatever, to put it on wax. We're now at a point where sort of like the coda, the epilogue of all of this is BBL Drizzy.
BBL Drizzy. BBL Drizzy. BBL Drizzy. Oh, BBL Drizzy.
Where Metro Boomin drops this track and basically tries to crowdsource a diss track on Drake and says, I'm releasing this track. Everybody who wants to take a shot at Drake, you can do it. And it's not only been hilarious, but it's such a reflection of where we are sort of technology-wise. Talk a little bit about how technology has changed how battle raps can even occur. Because the speed with which this can happen and the participation that people can have, 25 years ago, your local DJ on 95.5 was dictating how people felt about this. If they like Nas, if they like Jay-Z, they could have an impact. But now tech has democratized this.
Yes, the technological aspect of this is fascinating, and the speed with which this battle was able to happen and the ability to put things out rapidly. Now, the technology got in its own way at first because there were a lot of AI songs that at least one I sent to a friend. Oh, so Kendrick responded, Drake responded, and they're like, that's AI. So, it happened on both sides to me, and I'm sure to other people. So it became like, when a new song dropped, it was like, is this real? I need confirmation. I want to see everybody talking about it before I believe that it's real. And then when you saw folks like Kendrick, like dropped it on his Instagram, okay, this is clearly real. We could not have had the Friday, Saturday, Sunday that we had out of this in the past.
There's a business aspect of this that I want to make sure that we touch on. There was a rumor a while back that record executives were unhappy about this, that studios were concerned because they thought it was going to have a brand impact one way or another. What do you think is the business legacy of this? We've talked about the musical legacy. We've talked about how Drake is going to be looked at. We've talked about how Kendrick's going to be looked at. Has this changed the rap business? Has this changed the music industry at all? Is there a business or an economic legacy to this? Or is it a moment that we're just going to hold, because it was a fantastic cultural moment?
I don't know what the business legacy is. I mean, I see Kendrick's streams went way up for his whole catalog and Drake's went a little down, which I struggle to believe that his streams overall went down. Like people were like, I don't want to, like, whatever. But, Kendrick's definitely taken an upswing in his career. I don't think that he did this for that. I think he did this as a pure gesture in that I really dislike that person. I mean, I think that, when you think about, molestation was an actual part of his childhood, not that he got it, but that he talked about it, and his mother, and there was family trauma wrapped around that when he comes into the industry and he's like, that major guy who y'all hold up and love does that stuff. Like, he knows the age of consent and on all these different places off the top of his head. Like, what? That he was deeply angry about Drake's success in his heart. Is there a business? I don't know. I think that we see the continued viability of beef. And I think that we see that we are a country that's sort of like on edge and like ready to fight at any time. I think part of that is about Trump and the things that are going on from like the general angst and anxiety of this person might become president again, even if you don't care about that. I think there's a lot of weird sort of anger in the culture in the world right now that we're all sort of like working through.
Touré is an author, cultural commentator, and host of the Touré Show podcast. One of my favorite people. Touré, thank you so much for joining us today on A Word.
Thank you for having me.
That's A Word for this week. The show's email is aword@slate.com. This episode was produced by Ahyiana Angel. Ben Richmond is Slate's Senior Director of Podcast Operations. Alicia Montgomery is the Vice President of Slate Audio. Our theme music was produced by Don Will. I'm Jason Johnson. Tune in next week for A Word.
Can I really do this? It's what everyone asks at every new stage of life. Sandy Spring Bank has you covered with personalized solutions to buy a house or improve the one you've got, or to grow your business, because that helps our community grow. We'll show you how to save more for the future, wherever it brings you. What's your next financial destination? Sandy Spring Bank. Visit sandyspringbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 406382.